Time now to trek around the globe as we do every day. I want to bring you up to speed with what is going on in Israel. A new threat today to try to break the Israeli blockade of Gaza, and this time it comes from Iran. Matthew Chance is on top of this and other developments, and he joins us now from Jerusalem. Hello, Matthew.
Hey, Ali, that's right. The Iranian Red Crescent, a humanitarian organisation, saying that it is now preparing to send 2 ships loaded with food and medical supplies, other humanitarian supplies as well, and will send it part of a larger, wider international flotilla. It says is being assembled to try and once again to challenge that Israeli naval blockade of the Gaza Strip. It hasn't set out yet, but obviously it's putting a lot of pressure on Israel, already having international condemnation for its action on the high seas. It's, of course, intercepted a number of ships attempting to deliver humanitarian supplies into Gaza, where 1.5 million Palestinians are, running very short of supplies, according to human rights workers. But Israel says it needs to continue to enforce that blockade, because if it didn't, it means that Palestinian militants would bring in weapons and use them against Israeli civilians. So this is the latest twist in this ongoing saga, Ali.
Matthew, the issue here, of course, is that people dispute whether some of this aid it can possibly be used for terrorist purposes. In fact, what we've been hearing is that Israel maintains a blockade of things that, for instance, regular printing paper and things like that, it doesn't seem clear what exactly they're trying to keep out and let in.
Yeah, it's really random stuff. Coriander is allowed in, cinnamon is banned, or the other way around. Chocolate has been banned. And the fact is, Israel doesn't have a definitive list of banned items. You know, human rights groups here in Israel have compiled a list of the kind of things that aren't allowed to go in. Building materials, cement was carried by this recent ship, the Rachel Corrie, because of all the building that needs to be done after the military campaigns there, the hospitals, the schools, the houses. Israel says that cement can also be used to build bunkers, and therefore they're not going to let it in. And there's all sorts of things like that. The pressure now is on Israel, not necessarily to lift its blockade. It says it won't do that, but to look again at this list that it has, this secret list, and to basically make it easier so that people in Gaza can get what they need to eat.
Meanwhile, Matthew, what's the development with Iran, and how is that going to affect tensions?
Well, we'll see what happens. Obviously, it's potentially a big escalation. It's not just some human rights group we're talking about here, some independent pro-Palestinian group that's organising a flotilla. This is the Iranian Red Crescent. There's even been a suggestion, this is totally unconfirmed, but it would be escorted by Iranian ships when it's in international waters. So the potential is there for a much, much bigger conflict. We don't know what the Israeli response would be, but presumably they would also intercept these ships as well. They've done that in the past. They say they do it in the future, and so it could potentially be a big point of conflict in the weeks ahead when this aid flotilla finally sets out, if it ever does.
Okay, so just to picture that in our minds, you may see an Iranian flotilla floating in international waters with Israeli ships next to it, and you've got to imagine at that point you've got a potential for a tinderbox, so the world's going to be very concerned about that.
Yeah, that's the nightmare scenario. It hasn't been confirmed, of course, by the Iranian Navy that they would do that, but that is the big concern here.
All right, and you mentioned the Rachel Corrie. That has been intercepted. No more happening with that? That's the ship that set out from Ireland?
Yeah, it's been intercepted. It's been impounded by the Israelis. The passengers on crew, 19 of them, they've all been evicted, taken out of the country, sent out of the country, kicked out. They have to come back and pick up the ship at a later date. The humanitarian supplies on board, including 550 tons of cement, as I mentioned earlier, that's been taken by Israel. They've loaded much of the other supplies. They've tried to send it into Gaza, but there's another complication. Hamas, the militant group that runs Gaza, says it won't accept any of this aid because they say Israel illegally seized it. And so the people of Gaza Strip aren't getting the aid anyway.
All right, so this thing isn't going to get solved anytime soon, but you're on top of it. Matthew, thanks very much for being with us. Matthew Chance, our senior international correspondent, joining us from Jerusalem.